At 98, I can tell you the single habit that decides whether someone stays in their own home or ends up dependent on others. And almost nobody takes it seriously enough. It is not a supplement. It is not a diet. It is not a brain game or a gadget on your wrist. It is something nearly every person did automatically as a child and quietly stopped doing in their 50s. I want to be honest with you about the stakes. Independence in late life is mostly decided long before the moment it is tested. By the time you are wondering whether you will keep your house, the decision has usually already been made. It was made in the decades before in the shape of a single small habit, repeated or abandoned. The habit is walking, but not walking the way the fitness industry sells it to you. Stay with me, and by the end, I will give you the real numbers, the real reasons, and what to do this week. I want to reframe walking for you, because most of what you've been told about it is wrong by accident. Walking is not a workout. It is the default operating system the human body was built on. We were shaped, over a very long time, for continuous, moderate forward motion. Everything inside us, the joints, the blood vessels, the brain, assumes you are going to walk most days. When you do not, the systems do not pause. They begin, very quietly, to come apart. Look at the noise around us. Cold plunges, $300 trackers that scold you about your heart rate, supplements that promise to flatten your blood sugar, boot camps that leave people limping into their cars. None of it outperforms simply walking. The evidence has shown this for years, and it keeps showing it. I will say this plainly. When people stop walking, decline does not wait politely for them to notice. It begins quietly, often years before anyone in the family says a word. This is what aging research consistently finds. It is also what I have watched in person across decades of public health work. Now let me give you the real numbers because they are not what you have been told. Large studies that track tens of thousands of older adults found that the risk of dying from any cause drops sharply once people move out of a sedentary baseline. The benefit climbs steeply at first and then begins to level off. For adults over 60, the curve flattens out somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 steps a day. Past that, you are mostly just adding sweat. The benefit is already in your pocket. You have probably heard the number 10,000. I want you to hear where that number actually came from. In 1965, a Japanese clock company released a wearable pedometer to ride the wave of fitness interest after the Tokyo Olympics. They called it Manpo-ki, which translates to 10,000 step meter. They picked the number because it was catchy and because the Japanese character for 10,000 looks a little like a person mid-stride. That is the entire origin. It was a slogan. It was never a clinical prescription. Here is the part that matters most, especially if you feel behind. The biggest gains happen at the low end. Going from 2,000 steps to 4,500 steps gives you more life-saving benefit than going from 8,000 to 12,000. 6,000 steps is walking to the shops. It is pacing the garden. It is taking the stairs. It is not heroic. It is reachable. There is one more measurement I want you to understand, because gerontologists call it the sixth vital sign. It is your natural walking speed. Gait speed is a quiet summary of how every system in your body is holding up. It depends on your heart, your lungs, your muscles, your inner ear, your nervous system, and your brain, all working together in real time. When one of those systems begins to slip, your body responds by slowing down. It is not laziness. It is the body recalibrating to stay upright. In one well-known study of older men, researchers looked at survival against natural walking pace. Men whose normal stride stayed above roughly 2 miles per hour had dramatically better odds, The researchers half-jokingly noted that no man in their data who walked faster than about 3 miles per hour was caught by mortality during the follow-up period. He had, in their phrasing, outpaced it entirely. I want to be careful here because this matters. Walking speed is a biomarker, not an instruction. Forcing yourself to march faster on command does not change your underlying reserves. What changes them is building capacity slowly, over months and years. A slowing pace is rarely just about the legs. It is the whole body telling you something. The honest thing is to listen, not to argue with it. Now I want to tell you what walking does to the brain, because this is the part that surprised me most when I first read the research. When you walk at a moderate pace, your muscles release a signal that travels through the bloodstream and into the brain. There, it triggers the production of a protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of BDNF as fertilizer for the connections between brain cells. It helps them stay healthy, form new branches, and replace some of what is lost with age. It is especially active in the memory centers. In one year-long study of older adults, the people randomized to regular walking actually grew the volume of a key memory region by about 2%. The hippocampus normally shrinks by 1 to 2% a year in late adulthood. So the walkers did not just slow the loss, they effectively turned the clock back by 1 to 2 years. The control group, who did not walk, lost volume on schedule. Extreme exertion is not better. Pushing the body to exhaustion produces oxidative stress that may work against the brain. Walking lands in the sweet spot. There is one more piece. When you walk outdoors, the world flows past your eyes. That motion calms the brain's threat detection center. A treadmill in front of a wall does not do this. The body moves, but the eyes report you are trapped. I want to handle this next part carefully because depression in later life is not a small thing, and I am not in the business of giving anyone a reason to feel ashamed. There is a study many of you may have heard of called SMILE, run out of Duke University. The researchers took older adults with major depression and randomized them into 3 groups: medication, regular walking, or both. After 16 weeks, the remission rates were roughly equal. That alone was striking. But the real surprise came at the 1-year follow-up. Among the people who had kept walking, only about 8% had relapsed. In the medication-only group, it was closer to 38%. I want to be clear. This is not advice to stop any medication you are taking. Decisions about treatment belong with your physician, who knows your history. What the evidence shows is that movement carries a kind of weight medication alone cannot. When someone walks themselves toward feeling better, they build a sense of authorship over their own recovery. That self-efficacy is durable. It holds up over time. I will say one more honest thing. Low mood and immobility feed each other. The longer the loop runs, the harder it gets to break. Breaking it early is far easier than breaking it late. That is just how it works. Let me walk you through what walking does to the rest of the body, because most of it is invisible until it fails. Start with the joints, cartilage. The smooth tissue that lines the inside of your knees and hips has no blood supply of its own. It is a sponge. It is fed by the cyclic compression of walking, which squeezes out waste and pulls in nutrients with every step. Sitting still to spare the knees is precisely what starves them. The pain that comes after years of inactivity is the pain of dry, malnourished tissue. Walking does not wear your joints out, it feeds them. Next, blood sugar. After a meal, glucose enters your bloodstream, and your pancreas releases insulin to clear it. If you sit still, the spike runs higher and longer. If you walk for 10 or 15 minutes after eating, your leg muscles pull glucose directly out of the blood, blunting the post-meal rise by up to about 20%. No supplement matches this. We used to call it going for a walk after supper. Then the wellness industry repackaged it as a hack and started selling capsules. Now the heart. In a study of adults over 70, adding just 500 steps a day, roughly a trip down the driveway and back twice, was linked to meaningfully lower risk of heart attack, stroke, and heart failure. The biggest gains, again, were at the lowest end of activity. None of this requires becoming an athlete. It requires showing up most days. Now I want to tell you why this habit of all habits decides independence. Because it is not about looking spry. It is about a single threshold most older adults eventually face, and what stands behind it. In older adults, a hip fracture often begins a long, hard cascade. Depending on the population studied, the one-year mortality after a hip fracture runs roughly between 1 in 4 and over half. The cause of death is rarely the break itself. It is the immobility that follows. Pneumonia, blood clots, rapid cognitive decline. The body, having relied on movement for its quiet maintenance, comes undone when movement stops. This is why outdoor walking matters more than seated machines ever will. Walking on uneven ground, gravel, grass, a slightly tilted sidewalk, trains the ankles, the small stabilizing muscles, the proprioceptive system, and the brain's real-time balance corrections. That is the exact system that catches you when a rug shifts under your foot. A seated leg machine cannot train it. It removes the very thing that needs training. There is one more measure I want you to know about. It is called dual task walking. Can you walk and hold a conversation at the same time, without one of them faltering? In healthy adults, walking is automatic. The brain handles speech freely on top of it. When the brain begins to slip, walking stops being automatic, and the whole system starts to compete with itself. The honest version of all this is simple. Independence in your 80s and 90s is not won in your 80s and 90s. It is built or quietly lost in the decades before. So here is what to do starting this week. Aim for somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 steps on most days at a comfortable, natural pace. Add a 10 to 15-minute walk after your largest meal of the day, when you can do it safely. Favor outdoors and varied terrain over a treadmill. If you are at 2,000 steps right now and reading this with a knot in your stomach, I want to lower the bar for you. Your goal is not 8,000 tomorrow. Your goal is 2,500 next week. The biggest, most life-saving gains are exactly where you are standing. They are not somewhere up the mountain. They are at your front door. This is the habit that decides if you stay independent. Not because it is dramatic, because it is daily. Late is not the same as finished. Your future is being practiced now, before it becomes regret. If this was useful, subscribe and tell me in the comments what your walk looked like today, however small. Walking guards the body that carries your mind. For what keeps the mind itself steady at my age, I made a video on exactly that. Watch that one next.